Welcome back to Shoot Me Straight with Eddie Gallagher and Dave Fields. And Dave is not here. He is still on his hellacious Disney cruise with the fam. I can only imagine what he's going through right now, but he should be back with us next week. So keep Dave and his wife in our thoughts and prayers. And hopefully he survives that Disney cruise. He's a better man than I am for attempting to go on that. But today we have Gnarly Harley. Harley, and to pronounce your last name so I don't mess it up.
Van Hyning.
Van Hyning, that's right. Okay. Harley Van Hyning with us today. He is a local to the Destin area. I think we met, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago for the first time.
2020.
Was it 2020?
Beauchamps.
Yeah, when we brought that, it's like that
Marlin.
500 and something pound blue marlin in.
Yeah.
And that's when I saw you sort of go to work for the first time with what you do. It's you do canvas, or what would you say call it?
The art form of Gyotaku.
What is it?
Gyotaku.
Gyotaku. All right.
Fish rub, fish print.
Okay. And we'll get into that. Yeah, and have you sort of describe how you got into that. But I did watch it, and I was like, dude, that was pretty amazing.
Awesome.
And it came
Thanks,
out
Eddie.
outstanding. I saw the finished product. But then, I've ran into you a handful of times here and there. You've always been just super chill and super cool every time we've met, and just always in a good mood. And I was actually with my buddy Scott Brown a couple weeks ago, and you came up because he said he was talking to you. I was like, oh, yeah, we were talking about how awesome you are and just the good energy and vibes you bring everywhere.
Awesome.
And I was like, dude, yeah, we need to have him on the podcast for sure. So I appreciate you taking the time to come down here and have a conversation.
Absolutely, Eddie. Honored to be on your podcast and be your guest, and excited to share. Because I remember sitting with Scott and having a conversation and just kind of talking about, basically, kind of conversation was sort of about creating things, your life, and and sort of what you focus on and where your mindset's on all reflects in in the physical. So it's which we kind of touched on it right before we came in, but we were saved for the podcast. But I guess you call it manifesting, or just being able to visualize and create whatever life that you want, because basically, it's free will.
Yep.
And so whatever you choose, and also how you live and all that, and how you are on the inside ultimately reflects in your physical world, what's in front of you. So
Yeah, so pretty much if you focus on the positive or try to keep a positive mindset, you'll attract positive things in your life.
Right.
Is that sort of?
Yeah, that, but it's also kind of, I guess, an example I would say is sort of like what I was telling Scott, kind of with the art life and how that's evolved with myself. And it's kind of one of those things where, I guess, in the world that we live in, with like jobs and careers and things like that, and people get pulled away from what you say is your truth, and what is it you truly like, the shoes in which you really want to walk in. And I think a lot of people, it takes courage to do that, because you have this desire, oh, I want to be, do this for a living, or this is what my passion is, what I love. And due to maybe lifestyles, or if you're in a certain career field and you just discover like, oh, this is what I love and what I really want to do. But then it's like, oh, I got bills to pay. I've got these obligations and things like that. And people, it's a little bit of, fear, and it's discouraging to take that leap of faith. And the thing is that when you do that and you let go and release the fear, worrying about the future, because the future is not relevant, because it's not here. It's in the present, and what you do now and the choices that you make that determine your future. So it's kind of like, if you live in the past, it's not relevant, because that's living in attachment. But then if you live in the future, then you're living in fear, though it is good to gauge where you're going in your path. But then if you go too far and worry too much about the future, then it's not really relevant. And you're not living in the present, which is the most important time in your life, and where to be.
Where do you think that fear comes from? Because I'm sure, when I remember, growing up as a kid, you're, world's your oyster. You're like, you can, when you're little, you're like, oh, I want to be this. I want to be an astronaut. I want to do all these things. And I remember, growing up and teachers like, you can be whatever you want to be, right? And, what do you want to be, the president, an astronaut, this or that. But then as you get older, especially later on in your high school years, and then you're sort of done with high school, maybe you go to college, but then you are set free into the real world on your own. Mm-hmm. I do think there are people that get stuck doing things that they never set out to do or like be from when they were little, like their little childhood dreams or what they actually wanted to do. They get stuck like, okay, well, I have, like you said, I have to provide, I have to do, get a degree, I have to do this, and that. And they continue on with that life until late. That's why I think a lot of the times that, they have these, especially men, the midlife crisis, mm-hmm. right? And then they're like, dude, this is not what I wanted, and I can't believe I'm 40 years old, and I've been doing this job, which I don't like, or it's not my dream. I think that happens more often than not. Mm-hmm. And where do you think that fear comes from to drive those people to do things that they really don't want to do?
I think a lot of how that develops or comes into play with people, or just where it's originally starts from, is early on. You're led to believe that you have to have a certain life, which is like kids or married by in your mid-20s or late 20s. And, if you're not that, there's something wrong with you, or you have to know who you are and figure out your path at 18 or 19 going into college, what you want to do. It's like you don't even know who you are.
Yeah, your brain's not even fully developed yet.
Right. You're still figuring out, you're still learning. I mean, you're still so young and just experienceless in life, and so much to, so I think there's a lot of pressure, or not really pressure, but I'd say that's put in place early on, so people are forced. So it's not natural. They're forced to make decisions and choose things normally based on other people's guidance and not their own intuition.
Yes.
And that leads them off of their path that they're meant for, however God wants them to do and be. But then I also believe that synchronicities, as you call it, different things, people come into play. And more of those things will come into play. It's kind of going back to what I was kind of saying before with like your truth. The more you align with your truth, then more the things that are meant for you align for you. And people will come out of places that you can't even imagine or believe to help you when you make that commitment into following what your compass is, your intuition, your heart, which is how I understand and have experienced it. That's your connection to Source, God. And the more connected and aware of you are with that, and the little voice that says, turn left, turn right. And no, this is not for me. And that ultimately guides you to just what is like a magical life.
Yeah.
And it's wild, man. I've experienced some stuff where I'm just like, dude, this is crazy.
So where did you start off from? Like where were you born?
So I was originally born at Eglin Air Force Base.
Okay, so you're a military brat?
Military. I didn't move around. My father, he was originally from Kansas, and my mother was born and raised in London. So he met her there. They moved here, and then I was born and raised at or born at Eglin, and then grew up here in the area and was raised. So my parents didn't move away, and my parents had divorced when I was, I think, around like 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And so my mother and I had stayed here. My dad still lived here. So I've grown up here in the area. I've always lived here.
Your whole life?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those towns where in high school everyone's like, oh, you got to move, there's nothing here. You got to move away. And now it's funny because everyone's trying to find a way back.
Yeah. Everybody, everybody's trying to move here.
Right.
This place is a bubble for sure. And we moved here 5 years ago, maybe 6. I lose track of time, but
yeah,
I can't imagine moving anywhere else. I'm like, this is where I want to stay. I don't have any plans to move. But I guess I can see, if you grow up here, if you're born here, because obviously my kids are now they spent a good majority of their teenage years here. My youngest is now starting high school, so he's been here since fifth or sixth grade. But a lot of their friends are like not going anywhere. You know, they're like, no, we're staying here. But I think, at least with my daughter and my son, who just joined the Marine Corps, so he's off serving right now. But they sort of have that itch too, where they're like, I want to go somewhere else. And I do push that. I'm like, good, you should go experience what you can experience and get the most out of life. And you should travel around a little bit. I mean, that's what I did. But at the end of the day, I'm like, you have to understand where we live is a blessing. Like, this place is a blessing. It was a huge one on our family, but just the people here, everybody here is like-minded. They're good people, like very neighborly. I mean, the people that I've met here, compared to where I've lived, and I've lived all over the world, these are some of the friendliest, most spiritual, and also just they're patriots. They love this country, and I couldn't imagine being around anybody anywhere else, or being around anybody else. It's been good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's a lot of 3 a.m. friends. If you ever need something, you broke down.
Yeah.
Hey man, what's up? I need some help. All right, I'll be right there. Where you at?
Yep. Yeah, good.
There's a
just
lot
good
of
neighbors,
solid people.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So you grew up here. What high school did you go to?
So I went to Fort Walton Beach High School.
Okay.
So I did all the schools here: Marius Elementary, Bruner Middle School, Fort Walton Beach High School. Did college here. Went to what was Pensacola Junior College at the time. I got my 2-year degree there, and then I got my bachelor's in PR marketing at the University of West Florida in Pensacola. And attempted to move away after college for a marketing job in San Diego. Wanted to move somewhere there's waves for surfing. And then I was doing a podcast at that time when I was in college. I was kind of involved with several different things, which kind of led me into where I am now, because my dad was kind of encouraging, like, oh, you've got your degree, quit bartending, working at the bar. And because I was doing that as my income, but then, doing the podcast that was for tourism and travel, and then some other things. And I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go work corporate. And I had met people that worked in New York City in the corporate world, and they're like, oh, it's soul sucking. And it just wasn't. I'm stubborn in the fact that if I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do
it. you and I are very similar in that manner,
not
for
doing
sure.
It.
Yeah.
And I will say nope, and I will go out the door kicking and screaming before I'm just not going to do it. And I don't know. I just was stuck to my guns with doing my own thing and my own path, which ultimately led me to where I'm at now. Which, I look back at that path, and I'm like, gosh, had I moved there, or the trajectory in life and everything would have been so different, and I wouldn't be where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So
for that, so you started that podcast. When was that? In like 2006.
2006.
So that was before podcasts were really like big or a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And you said it was on tourism and travel?
Yes, it was for tourism and travel to the area. So it was called Destin, FloridaPodcast.com.
So would you interview people that were vacationing here, or like what was the premise?
So I mostly discussed like events, news that was relative to the area, and then I'd give, for growing up here, I would give my local input and knowledge on certain things. For example, if there was something unique or that was washing up on the beach, or people were having a big fit about the June grass, and like, well, that's something that happens annually every year. The water temperatures, algae
that's
grows,
nature.
It's natural.
Yeah.
So I'd always give like local input or knowledge, or if there's festivals, I'd be like, hey, locals probably wouldn't like it, but like, this is where you want to park, because the parking's always an issue, but this is where I go. So I'd give people the real deal scoop. I wouldn't sugarcoat things. I'd say, no, this isn't, just tell the truth of the beach, but also share the lifestyle of the beach for people that were not only locals, but visitors that kept up with the area or had second homes here.
Yeah.
And I would feature local music at the end of each show. And so they were like 15 to 20 minutes long, twice a month. And but it was fun. Yeah,
That's awesome.
A lot of journalism work. So I'd cover from Panama City to Pensacola, and with events and go to events, and I would interview locals of interest or that were relevant to whatever I was talking about. Like a friend of mine, Harry Madison, and a guy named Lance Moss that runs a surf camp in Nicaragua called Safari Charters. The first year of the paddleboard division they had in the fishing rodeo in Destin, they went out on paddleboards to go shark fishing off the sea buoy off the pass. Anyway,
so they were shark fishing off paddleboards?
Shark fishing off paddleboards. Had 2 chum blocks they dropped into the to chum up sharks from whatever they could get, and literally brought in what Harry said, every shark within a 2-mile radius, some bigger than their paddleboards. There was one that popped up that he went down to his knees because he's like, Lance, dude, look at this shark. And then I guess Lance threw out a big live bait, and a sailfish grabbed this live bait, and when it started jumping out the water, they both freaked out, and it dragged them out 6 miles. But the rules of the paddleboard division was you have to paddle back and drop it off at the dock at AJ's. You can't be helped. And so anyway, after being dragged out 6 miles, they got on the board. We're able to call a brother or a relative that was like, yes, it's a legal fish, bring it in. And so word got out. So when they got back to the docks at AJ's, there was just a huge crowd there, and just amazing story of going out shark fishing and catching a sailfish, and then being able to paddle it all the way back in just in time to get it weighed in.
Dude, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I had interviewed him about that story, and he's like, yeah, man, we were paddling back in. There was like sharks next to us because we didn't have the fish contained. It was strapped on the front of the board.
Oh, dang. So
the blood and everything. He's like, we had boats, helping us, watching us, but by the time we got back, it's like, it was so worn out. It's like, gosh, I can only imagine, but epic story.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, you're pretty much your chum yourself.
Yeah. There's a lot of sharks.
Well, yeah, I think that's what people don't know. Like this area, the beaches here are definitely shark infested.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't stop people from going in the water. I mean, it's just part of Florida.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first moved here, we were out at the beach, and the kids were all in the water, and I'm looking like 15 feet down or 15 feet, down the shore, and there was kids fishing right off the shore, pulling in, hammerheads right there. You're like, oh shit, okay.
What's crazy is when I was growing up, we used to go to Navarre Beach, where the National Seashore is. So just past where the last houses are on Navarre Beach, between Pensacola and Navarre. And growing up, we'd go out and go pompano fishing because my dad loved surf fishing, and pompano in particular because he loved cooking and eating it. So we'd always be on the beach fishing every weekend, and never used to see sharks. I remember one afternoon seeing what looked like a couple spinner sharks cruising through. Now it's kind of the only time growing up I ever saw sharks. Now the shark population has exploded. But that was, I think, a big thing to that was, I think, at the time they were doing the netting off the beach. So when they put in the net ban, then over time those populations came back, and now we've got like a giant, or not a giant, but a big congregation of tiger sharks that are showing up at the Okaloosa Island Pier in Fort Walton. Mm-hmm. I've never seen anything like that. And that's been happening now for 3 years. This past year, there's something like close to 20 tiger sharks, the biggest estimated being like 14 feet plus.
Yeah. I mean, those tiger sharks are beasts.
Yeah.
And they're aggressive.
Yeah, they're not definitely shark, like out surfing, if I see a tiger shark, it's, well, I haven't seen one yet in the water. I'm sure there's been around, and, I'm sure there's so many sharks that have been around I didn't see that were just beyond me or out in deeper water. But it's definitely a shark that makes me nervous because they're
one you want to keep your eye on for sure. It's not like if you're out there you see like a nurse shark or a lemon shark, you're like, oh, whatever, But a tiger shark or like a bull shark, because I know we have bull sharks as well in the bay, and those are super territorial. And
we got great whites too. They caught one recently, I think a few days ago, off of Pensacola Beach. these guys that do a lot of shark fishing over there.
Yeah.
Brought in what was estimated a 1,200-pound great white. I think it was 12 feet length. And, I mean, that was off the beach, but that's happened before. And also we get some big makos that come moving through usually around February, March. And I think they show up ahead of the fish migration that's in the spring, like with like cobias and all the other fish that are moving to go west. And there's been some giant makos that cruise right off the beach, which is, I don't want to have an encounter with one of those.
we're really selling it here. We're like, come on down those shark infested waters. I mean, they're out there, but
also
it's part of nature. I mean, I grew up. My dad was a huge scuba diver. I grew up scuba diving my whole childhood, and then we'd actually go on shark dives. Like we'd go on the eastern shore of Florida, West Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go down there and go on these shark dives where we went out and go underwater, and then they would chum the water. They'd have like a basket full of chum and sink it down there with us. And we'd have 40 to 50 sharks just swimming around us. And I mean, I think I'm glad that we did that growing up, because it's gave you a more realistic perspective. Like, sharks aren't out there looking to like go after humans. They're animals, just like every other animal. They're going to eat, but in reality, they're just as scared as you of you as you are of it.
Right.
They'll swim away, but at the end of the day, you get sharks like makos, great whites, who are, especially the great white, which is the ultimate predator of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, man, it's looking for food, and you're on the menu.
Bite size. I mean,
yeah, and you can't really get mad at it either. It's just you're in its environment, right? So, but it just taught me to have like a healthy respect for sharks, and also not to be completely scared of them.
It's kind of like always keeping eye contact with them is kind of key.
Yeah,
especially with like tigers. And I had an encounter once with a bull shark out surfing. There were several friends, and that was on Holiday Isle in July. And this is probably 2012-ish. And clear day, waves are, waist to chest high. I was out with 5-6 other buddies. So I was sitting in the water. I was the furthest to the left, and I'd seen this shadow coming from the east. And I was like, "Hey guys," I was like, "I'm pretty sure that's not a dolphin coming our way right there." And they're like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Right there." So this thing beeline straight to me, about estimated 7-8 foot bull shark. But it came straight up to me, and I pulled my legs and arms up on my board, and I mean, it was close enough to where I could have pet it, and I was making eye contact with it, and it was looking up at me, and I was looking at it in the eye, just going, "Whoa!" just cool, just like whoa, and then a couple of buddies were freaking out, like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, which is the last thing you want to do,
right? And so it kind of turned away, and once it turned away, we didn't have far to go to get to the inside, and which was like waist deep water. So we just scratched in real quick, and then it kind of cruised by. But yeah, it was that was a sketchy encounter.
Yeah, the pucker factor was there. Yeah,
definitely. Like, what's this, and is it edible?
So you did the podcast, right? And then also we're doing college.
Yeah. So with the podcast, I was doing that, started that in college, and then after college, continued doing that to around 2010 or 11. And then I broke away to do my own thing, which was called Live Like Destin, which was basically the same thing, but I was taking my own journey from the guy I was working with. And that was about living life to the fullest on our area beaches. And so what happened with that was I started creating a lifestyle brand using the art form of Gyotaku, which is fish prints, fish rubbings.
How did you get into that?
So I had learned about that from art history classes. And so I was like, oh, well, this is cool. I could use this to do my first run of merchandise for the lifestyle brand using local fish I catch or whatever, friends fish. And showed my mother what I was doing, and she was like, she hates when I say this because it's like slang in British, but she's like, "Screw the bloody T-shirts, do more of this." And basically got obsessed with it, had canvas everywhere, and just painting every fish I could get my hands on. And then a friend, that does artwork as well, was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about selling your work?" And I was like, No, no, I've never thought about it. Well, the seafood festival's got a locals corner this year. It's only like a $200 entry fee, and just go get an application, submit some photos. Yeah, you should apply. I was like, okay. So I did, got in, and that was kind of like the fire motivation. Like, okay, now I got to like finish these canvases and the stuff I've been working on and start creating stuff to show and to do this. And so when I did the seafood festival, that was kind of where the art thing took off. Just response.
Did it blow up at the seafood festival where people were like, "Oh, this is awesome"?
Yeah, people loved it. A lot of friends were very supportive. Friends that came out and had bought artwork, and then just the exposure from that. Because at the same time, the day before that, when I got my first paycheck for a painting, which was from Karen Bilger. And at the time, she was waiting or serving tables at Harbor Docks. And Tina Harbuck from the Destin log was there, and she was just documenting the fish from the Lady M fishing trip. And then she saw what I was doing and did a story right then and there. And then Karen, because I'd painted and printed a scamp, and then she was like, "How much for this?" And I was like, $200. So she wrote me a check right away, and I remember her handing me the check, and it was just like this feeling. I will never forget it. It was just like I don't know, just something within me was just like, this is awesome, getting paid for art, doing this, and then it was just like, man, I want to do this every day.
Yeah, well, I think that feeling of getting paid for doing what you love to do, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like I wouldn't even want to get paid for this. I just love doing it. Yeah. But then when it's you see like people actually, I guess, appreciate what you're doing, and they want some of that. They want a piece of that art. That has to be like an awesome feeling to be like, dude, I can make a living off of doing what I love, which is few and far between, right? I think that's the goal in life, is to try and do what you love and then make some income to be able to live comfortably. At least for me, that's the goal in life. I realize there's, like, you talked about people, working up in Wall Street, and they're in the rat race, and they're just like, it sucks their soul, even though they're making millions of dollars. But at the end of the day, and I've met some of those people, I train them, and they come down here and for some shooting courses, and the big thing I get from them is like, yeah, I have a private jet, I have the money, but they all seem to be missing something. They're like, there's something I'm missing, and it's like, because, and to me, and from my perspective, it's because you're not doing what you actually love to do, and I think if you get stuck in that position for a certain period of time, then yeah, you feel empty inside a little bit.
So I think there's like a few elements, like with what you do in life and its ripple effect. There's this book, it's called Ikigai. So it's based on, kind of focuses on Okinawa and about living the Japanese secret to living the longest life. And so it compares to different, we're focused on the people in Okinawa and what they do for a live, or how they live and their lifestyles, their eating habits, things like that, with people that have lived 100 or more. And then it goes to other areas, which are blue zones, which Okinawa is a blue zone, and other blue zones, and how those people are living as well. Then it gives comparisons like, oh, well, this lady smoked a pack of cigarettes, smoked every day, but then how did she live to 100? What did she do different? And there's different things. And one of the big things with the Ikigai, or with the longevity, is community. Community is a big one. And when you're doing something that you love, there's a community with that, and connecting with people, and then that's such a huge important thing. And also, whenever you're doing something that you love, there's that ripple effect around you. It's like, it sounds cliche or whatever, but there's like the little photo of the match that's lit and all the matches around it, and how it takes just one match to light up the whole box.
Yeah.
And so doing what you love and that passion, it also inspires others to, empowers them to also do the same. Like, man, like he's transformed, evolved into this, and then people are admiring that the leap of faith and the steps that you've taken to pursue what it is you love or what you want to do. And then they're inspired and they're like, man, like, what am I doing? Okay, I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to be a florist or a gardener and start growing organic, which is what I've always wanted to do. And they're going to go pursue their thing. And that in itself, though, just has, when it comes down to like the collective with humans and, when you think about someone that's going into work miserable or driving in the left lane, tailgating, just all angst and discord and then versus someone that's going to work, loving what they do, they're in the right lane, cruising, windows down, drinking coffee, watching the guy over here freaking out like, man, gosh, it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, the rat race.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but then, if you have a job like that where you're going into work in a negative mindset and don't want to be there, but you have to, I think, that spreads as well, just as much as positivity spreads, right? It's If you're doing that, then you're taking that home. And, if you have a family and kids, guess who's feeling that as well? The family and kids. And then they're sort of raised in that environment like, oh, well, this is, and I think that sets the example too, where if your kids see you doing stuff, making a living, but you're not in a good mindset or in a good headspace, they're going to think, well, that's just the way life is. Like, that's what I have to do is get a job that I really don't want, but just to provide for my family. And that's what life's about, which really it's not. So you're setting that example or that standard for your family at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because from I guess the whole art journey and how that's kind of happened in like an accident way, I'd say, because I didn't expect it, and then it just kind of came to fruition. I was like, oh, like I've always loved art because my mother went to art school. She went to the Royal Academy in Central London, and so I grew up around art. Always loved it, appreciated it. Friends that are artists, and I'd go to their shows and support them, and love going to. My parents would take me to galleries and art festivals. So I loved it. I just always appreciated it, took naturally to it early on. And it was something that was like, I never dreamed of being an artist. But then sometimes the things in life that are meant for you are right underneath your nose. And people go chasing horizons for what's not meant for them when it's just right there. Something that you've always loved, that you've been around or enjoyed. And I remember when I was in high school, like the guidance counselor was like, oh, artists don't really make money. So I was thinking about, what is it I loved or that I was passionate about? And the environment was one. So my first major in college was environmental sciences. Then that went to meteorology because of surfing. I was very just paying attention to the weather because surfing revolves around the weather. And so I was knowledgeable of that, and I was like, oh, I love the weather, and my life revolves around that. So, and then I went to, how can I be creative and then have a broad spectrum where I can work in something that I want to work, or something that, like, say if I want to work in the surf industry, or if I want to work, I can be basically limitless, which, I was comfortable with public speaking and writing and got my PR degree. So, I ended up getting a PR degree. So that's all kind of worked out because from the PR marketing degree, that kind of transferred into the art and being able to, how to market myself and all that.
Yeah.
Just, I was going to say, going losing my train of thought there, but it's, first going into college and everything, it's, I'm having a little moment here, but
it happens.
But yeah, with going into school and college and all that stuff, I went into things that I was originally chose, that I was passionate about, that I enjoyed, and ultimately those things
propelled me
to where I am, and also I utilize those education, those experiences to be where I'm at now. So it's, and there was those moments where I could have gone off, different paths and different things. So
yeah, but you listen to your gut or your instincts, and you're like, I'm sticking to this path. This is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And then sounds like you used your college experience, everything you learned in there to sort of, like we talked about, propel you forward into exactly what you wanted to do.
Right.
It's funny, like when you just talked about, talking to your counselor, and she's like, well, artists don't make money. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what is also the big driving factor is like, it's money. Like, in order to be successful, you have to make money, and you have to make lots of it. And I think that mindset is not right. I mean, yes, will you be happy with lots of money? Sure, for a short period of time, or maybe, I don't know. I can't say because I don't have lots and lots of money. But from what I've seen, it's like having a lot of money and buying nice things, those only last for a short amount of time until you're like, now I have to make more money to buy more nice things to keep myself happy, right? To get those dopamine hits of like, now I have another new car, and now I have this, where if you were able to find something like what you're doing, and it's like, I don't make a butt ton of money. I make enough to live comfortably. But my mindset, though, you can't put a price on that. There's no amount of money that can give you like the fulfillment and happiness of doing what you love to do, with waking up every morning being like, you know what, I can't wait to go do X, Y, and Z today, right? And I think that's, I know growing up, it's like you're sold like a bill of goods, where it's like, in order to be successful, you have to go to college, do this, you have to hit these wickets, otherwise what we were told is you're going to be serving fries at McDonald's and you're going to be miserable, which is a complete farce, right? I mean, and it's all in your own mind, right? You're the one who controls how happy you are, how successful you are, not all these external factors or all these people telling you this is what it takes to be happy, or this is what it takes to be successful. It's like, that's on you. You can control that. Right. Right. And that's what it sounds like you did, for a very early age.
Yeah, because the other thing too, I guess, when it comes to, I guess as a person, how they're wired and stuff like that. Like I grew up very just go-getter. So I never relied on my friends to go. Like if I was going fishing, I was going fishing. And I remember my mother, like when I was in high, before I could drive, wanting to go surf, and I'm like, Mom, can you take me to the beach? The waves are super good. Yeah, I've got things to do. Well, I'm going to get my bike, and I'm just going to ride to the beach. This is by Herbert Field. I was willing to ride my bike all the way to the beach. I would have done it. I even bought a bike rack for my bike for that. When I got one, and because my mom didn't want me riding that far, but at that time frame, also it wasn't a big deal to ride that far on a bike or whatever, and that's just how we were as kids. We'd skateboard all over the neighborhood, be up at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, listen to Metallica, and no one cared. We weren't, causing,
No, you're just being kids.
Yeah, just having a good time. But that's how I was just always wired that way, is just go get it, just show up. And that's kind of what's been the recipe for where I'm at now, is like, just show up, with no expectations, just show up, do whatever it is, and it's just don't have any expectations to how things turn out, how they play out, and you put forth that intention and that effort, then things happen by doing that.
But you have to show up.
You have to show up.
That's the first step.
Nothing happens.
And you
got to show up for yourself, number one. Because if you're not showing up for yourself in life and all that, then that translates to, who you're attracting with people. That's relationships, friendships, opportunities, whatever. So it's, it's the biggest thing is just to show up.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I sort of had the same mindset. Sounds like we were very similar, because when I was in high school, I had no direction. I was, young punk kid doing whatever I wanted to do. Very stubborn. I had the best parents that would try and guide me, and they would tell me, you have to go to college. Like I wasn't, I didn't do good in school, mainly on purpose, because I was like, I don't care about homework. I don't care about any of this stuff. It doesn't interest me. But if I definitely wasn't the brightest, but I wasn't the dumbest either. Like if I put forth the effort, yes, I can ace this test if I study. But I just was like, this is all worthless to me.
Yeah.
And then by the time I graduated, I was like, dude, I know I can be something better. And, I grew up around the military my whole life. My dad was in the military until I was a freshman in high school. And that was just I think I was driven towards that. We had this conversation earlier before we started the podcast, like what drives us? Is it to do certain things in life? And is it, set on a cellular level is because of what your, ancestors did, or, what your parents did, or are you making those decisions on your own? Right. But I think due to my family history and, just being raised in the military, I was driven to go into the military. And it ended up being exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, I could have got out after 5 years if I wanted to, but I loved it. I thrived in it. And I'm blessed for it. I got to do, 20 years of, you don't grow up. You're pretty much a kid running around with guns in the backyards playing, except now it's just for real. But I was fulfilled doing that job. So I think that's, sort of the same mindset you had.
Actually, I was going to say, actually growing up, I guess dreams as a kid, the first, first growing up, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. So I played baseball through middle school, through high school, but then had to realize, like, I don't love baseball. So I'd rather go surfing than play baseball. And one of the things was, I remember my coach, he still coached because he loved the game. And I love baseball. It's fun. Had a good time, but I love the ocean. I wanted to be in the ocean. And but one of the other dreams I had was like, all right, well, if I don't make it as a pro baseball player, then it's either college or I want to be a Navy SEAL. And that's a true story.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my dad was in special ops, or with the Air Force, but with the 20th, the Pavelos.
Okay.
And but I was always, growing up, I was always watching Chuck Norris and
oh yeah, dude,
the Navy SEAL movie, Navy SEALs, and so I was
the documentary.
Yeah, and I don't know, I've always just when it comes to that, the warrior mentality, heart of a warrior, and especially like Scott and I were talking about this, how I've always kind of gravitated towards those kind of people, and it's one of the things he's like, yeah, man, he's like, well, not everyone that's you don't have to be, in the service or say a SEAL or 7th group guy to have the heart of a warrior.
Yeah,
that's it's just
you can still have the same mindset, the same drive as somebody who served, but apply that to your life, in other ways, and you still have that same warrior mindset, or whatever name you want to give it, like pretty much a driven go-getter, but live your life in a very warrior-like way, right? And that's what guys have to figure out after they get out. Is I think a lot of guys end up getting out, then they're like, oh, well, now that's over, what now? Like, how do I? It's like, no, you can still live the same way you've been living, except now take that on a new venture, right? But still take those same characteristics that you used to be in the military, or to be in special operations, or whatever you did. It doesn't even have to be special operations. It's whatever you did in the military. You can take all those characteristics that helped you serve and then use those to go forward on a new venture. And I guarantee it'll work out the exact same way if you apply those same disciplines that you use to be whatever occupation you had in the military.
Yeah, because that was when Scott and I were talking. That was something he was talking about with, I guess, like your identity and like identity with humans. You know, is such a big thing. As in, like, who am I? Or
Yeah.
what am I? And your why. Like, what's your why in life? And you know, and with life, with a journey that's not, you know, I think with like timelines, like, oh, in your 30s, or you got to have this and that and all that. And I think people forget or don't have the perspective that really, you know, there's these constructs or things that are in play that we're supposed to live by, or rules we're supposed to play by, or supposed to be at this expectation of a certain life, or what's a legacy that we're creating.
What society tells you, right?
Right. And ultimately, it's, you know, it boils down to, what are you doing? How does it affect people? Is it harming people? Is it lifting others up? Is it good for the collective of humans? Does it serve God? Does it have a purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, how does that? It's just how does that ripple on the grand scheme of things? And people have things that, you know, they change or figure out what they're doing at like 50. I think, was it Morgan Freeman, or there's other actors or people that have come into doing what they're doing later on in life. And so you just never know how things are going to work out. But then that always boils back down to the truth. You know, it's like the sooner you walk in your truth, and that, whether that's like your core values, what you're passionate about, what you love, what you believe in, and ultimately that leads you to those people, that community, but then also fulfillment, and being, just waking up every day going, all right, like, I don't want to be sleeping because I'm too excited to be living in my physical life.
Yeah.
I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, yeah, when you have a positive outlook on life and a positive mindset, you're doing what you love. It is easy to get up early in the morning and attack the day and be like, these are the things I'm going to accomplish today, and I'm looking forward to them. Right. And I can speak on that too, because I've been in headspaces where I've had a negative mindset, where, you know, I've gone through trials and tribulations in my life, and where it's like you wake up and you're like, dude, what am I doing? You know, like, what direction? I think a lot of people end up going through that at some point in their life, right? Especially if you're transitioning from a job, or, you know, whatever the circumstances are. But at the end of the day, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, yes, life is not fair, and sometimes it throws you curveballs, but you have to, like you said, at the end of the day, find, I guess, your truth, and like, what am I put on this earth for? And it should be to help others, to serve others in some capacity, right?
And there's a lot of fulfillment with helping and serving others, because there's, when you go and help somebody or do something good for them, or you know, whether that's giving your time or supporting a certain cause or something like that, or just pulling over to help someone fix a flat tire, that feels good.
Yeah.
And it feels good to help people, and to, you know, it's kind of one of those things, like, to take, you know, isn't give. There's more of a fulfillment feeling than with giving than rather than receiving.
Yes.
And gratitude has been, I think, one of the biggest things, like you're saying, where you wake up, or maybe life throws you a curveball, and those curveballs, and being grateful for each of those curveballs,
yes,
are what determines how that outcome comes afterwards, when you get through that. Because it's not, why is this happening? How is it happening? Like, this is happening for me, and be grateful for those little bumps, because they're, in some shape or form, you're experiencing what you're experiencing for because you're supposed to. You're there at that moment because you're supposed to be.
You're evolving.
Right.
Yeah.
And being grateful for those moments of curveballs, which are always growth. You know, when you look back at that and you're experiencing, like, man, you know, like, oh, this kind of sucks right now, but you know what? I know on the other side of this and where it's going, it's building me and growing me, because I need to go through this right now and experience this, because it's taking me to what is going to be my highest self, or that goal of however you envision yourself to be the best person. And I think that's something maybe people don't, or maybe don't have their focus on or their sights on, is like, what makes me the best person, that is not only for myself, my family, from friends, for strangers, for just humanity. What do I do, and what is it that makes me just an awesome, great person? And what am I doing that is contradicting that, or in the way of me achieving or becoming that person, which is, and ultimately like being what makes a great person. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be a job title. It's
no
core values, how you treat people, integrity, honesty.
The example you set.
Exactly. And doing that every day, and how you wake up, and, there's always people watching. There's always people observing, always. And you just never know that one little single bit, or that person that sees that, of how you opened a door and helped an old lady, or just whatever little act of service that you did, that might have just been normal, just like, oh, whatever. But then you don't realize, like, around how that's ultimately changing or helping others, or just making the world better.
Yeah, causing that ripple effect.
Right.
Right, of positivity. And I think it's funny, yeah, do you have kids?
No kids yet. I want kids.
All right. Well, you heard it, ladies. He's here.
Yeah, I'll say I'm single, not married, never been married, not married. And yeah, that's where I'm at in life. It's like, I'm like rising up to that best version of myself. Like, I'm striving to be that. And there's work, and I'm always trying to be in a constant state of awareness of myself, as in, like, okay, we got to work on this. You be more disciplined with this. This isn't aligning with what you want and who you are. And another thing too, I guess the dating world these days is crazy. And
I'm sure.
I guess, like, I'm an intense, passionate person. So if I meet a chick I connect with, it's like, in the past I've always been all in, where now I've evolved to where, I not only with the depth of myself and how I'm as a person, and what is meaningful to me, which is connection, and be able to talk about, have conversations like this and connect with somebody. It's not about like, oh man, she's, hot and blonde and looks like a, whatever. It's more of, I want a best friend, someone I can connect with. We align on the same things in life, want the same things, and want to have the same impact. It's like, just as you have your purpose, I have mine. And I'm here to encourage and
support you
and empower you, and have that reciprocated. And, it seems like with you and Andrea, you guys have that, which it looks, I've observed, it's like, oh man, they look like a super couple.
We're definitely, that's, she's,
that's awesome.
There's no words to describe like what we have. And half the time when I'll dwell on it and think, I'm like, dude, I don't want to, it's like, it's so perfect. I don't want to like jinx it and be like, oh, this, what we have is, the most, but it is, it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And I thank God every day for, but yeah, I mean, that is what you want to find, is someone that's your best friend, that's your teammate, that is there for you at the best and also at the worst, that is going to support you no matter what. And, it has to be reciprocal, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a give and take in relationships. And you have to have the ability to change yourself as well sometimes. Right. I think a lot of guys are like, oh, well, chicks are always trying to change you into what they want. And it's like, there is some truth to that, mm-hmm. but at the same time, maybe think about what they're trying to change in you, right? And it also goes the other way too. Sometimes you're like, hey, there's some things that you could help your spouse in changing the way she does things. And you have to be able to both see that in a positive light and be like, okay, I will work on these things. And then you also should be able to be like, no, I'm not changing myself on this because this is what makes me who I am.
Right.
And then the other spouse has to sort of be like, accept that and be like, okay, well, I accept you regardless and love you regardless, right? Mm-hmm. And it's hard work. Marriage is hard work, but you both have to be able to be willing to put in that hard work. And, we're going to be married 17 years.
Wow, awesome.
this year. And yeah, it's each day I'm like, dude, thank God I have her, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to bring up kids before, just because we were talking about, you know, reflecting on who you are as an individual, and like, am I doing the right things? Kids will show you that in a heartbeat, because you want to talk about someone who's always watching and imitating, and they are literally imitating everything you do from the moment that they can actually see who you are, you know, and they're observing you. And then when you can see like little traits in your kids, you're like,
Ooh.
where did you learn that? And then they're like looking at you like, this is what you do, you know? And sometimes it's a good thing to take note of that and be like, okay, I need to change the way I do things, because I don't want my kids being like this, right? Or picking up that trait.
Right.
So you're constantly trying to evolve and make yourself better, as a parent and as a human being. So you're raising good human beings.
I was going to say there's a few different like sources I watch with, I guess when it comes to sort of like not really so much spiritual guidance, but sort of, because we kind of talked a little bit about manifesting and stuff like that, and how you're saying like how your kids reflect, but also a lot of like how people live. There's another reflection as well, because, for example, if someone's, I guess this is kind of going into a different little route here, but for example, if someone's just in angst and always kind of has, or just not focusing on like the good, and they're like, oh, things are always happening to me, the victim mindset, and in a lot of your physical world and how you live, all is mirrored or reflected on how you are on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's like, just with like awareness, and be able to go through and think about like, why am I feeling this way? And taking the time for yourself to really sort of, I guess, kind of like self-evaluation, as you'd say, but having a consciousness and awareness of where you are, and then also how your life, where it's at and where it's going, and being aware of like, okay, this keeps happening to me. What am I doing, and how am I?
Why does this keep happening to me? What am I doing to cause this? Right. We brought up earlier the manifesting or whatever. I'm not I don't believe in manifestation.
Okay.
I think there is a mindset that you can have, like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to work hard to get towards that goal. But at the same time, sometimes what you want to do, and no matter what, if you can work hard towards it, it's not going to work out. So you have to realize that. And then I'm a believer, so I believe in God. So at the end of the day, it's His plan, right? Not yours. And I think that's what people have a hard time, especially, and for non-believers, and they're like, oh, why does this keep happening to me? Or how come I'm not getting what I want? And it's like, well, because God has different plans for you, and they're probably way bigger than what you think, right? And He'll change the course of your life at a, drop of a dime. Be like, yep, now I'm throwing this problem mix into your life. But if you have faith in Him and be like, okay, this happened, now I'm going to change the course and do whatever, have faith in Him, and then I'm going to change my course and have faith that it's going to work out. Like, still keep that positive mindset. And yeah, it's a struggle. Just like life's not fair. And, I have my favorite saying is, this pain will serve you well someday. Like, anything that you are going through, yes, no matter how much it sucks, as long as you sit there and struggle through it and get through it, you will be served 10 times more on the other end. Because as we talked about, those struggles in life help you evolve as a person. But that's on your own mindset. Like, you could go into those struggles and have a victim mindset and, why does this keep happening to me? This is not fair. Then yeah, all right, you're going to be stuck there, right? But if you have faith in God and be like, okay, you've put this in front of me, I'm going to navigate my way through this,
Mm-hmm.
and I have faith that I will be rewarded tenfold on the other side. And not only that, you're able to help others who are struggling as well. Like, hey, this is how I got through this, and this is where I'm at now. Like, this is not the end. This is just a problem that you're going through. That's why I have a hard time. I mean, and I do think there is something to, and I'm not like, completely crapping on manifestation.
Yeah.
I just think that you can have a manifest mindset, I guess, where, yes, I want to be, an artist, or I want to be a Navy SEAL, and like you start working towards that. But I think people just have to realize that if those plans don't work out, that's not the end. Right. You're just being diverted to something bigger and better a lot of the times.
Yeah, because with the manifestation stuff, because something like I do on a regular basis, every day, I guess it's more of obviously things that are not meant for you are not going to work out. Mm-hmm. It's like if you keep pursuing something, the door keeps shutting. Yeah. It's not meant for you. Maybe not at that time. Maybe later on. And I try to live in a state where I don't have expectations of things. I let them be, and I'm a man of faith myself. And so, like I was telling Scott, it's like every morning when I get up, I'm saying thank you for being here, my health, for my parents, for my friends, people that love me, the people that I love, that I get to do what I get to do, my health, and just everything. And then when it comes to, I guess, goals, aspirations, or things that I'd like to have, for example, I do lots of words of affirmations. So, like with belief systems and things like that. For example, I guess if you come from a home of, say, if you grew up in maybe poverty or just low income, that's how you grew up in the hood or something, and then the reality of, say, I don't know, being very wealthy or having a lot of money, there might be a belief system there because that's not something not an environment that you grew up from. Yeah. And you may be conditioned to believe that you're not deserving of that, which, no, we're all deserving of having abundance and living, you're allowed to go have a beach house if you want. It's free will. You got to work hard. And
that's the key.
The way to earn it, but it's not out of your reach. You can do that. It's there. It's there for everyone. And so I guess it's kind of one of those things on sort of what you desire and what you want in life. And I've, I guess, had things at times in certain moments where it's kind of weird. I guess like I'll, like pray for things, but then like I'll be talking to my mother about a painting or something, and at that time, like I needed some money, and then within a snap of a finger, someone's messaging me like, "Oh, is that available?" Yeah. Oh, I got a buyer. It's sold. What? No way. And things just happen, and that's a thing like that I've learned through experience with, I guess, kind of surrendering, as you'd say.
Yeah.
Because with the artwork and the art career, like I feel like I've been led to do that, and that's been my thing to do. However, it's supposed to serve, but I do that because it serves God, and however it goes, it's all been left to them or left to Him. As
that's
in,
right.
Like, hey,
you give up control.
This is it. I'm painting. Yeah, I'd love to wake up on the beach, listen to the waves. That's always been a dream. So however that happens, if that happens for me, awesome. I'll be beyond grateful to have that experience. Also, too, on an incredible, amazing woman that's just, this is my idea and the traits and everything of her that I want. So I think kind of with like the manifestation stuff it's kind of one of those things where you get in life with, like, you got to know what you want.
Yeah.
So like if you don't know what you want when it comes to a partner, then how are you going to be able to identify it when it comes up or when she shows up? So it's kind of, I guess, kind of one of those things where, if you see if I ask you, hey, Eddie, when's the last time you saw a red Bronco drive down the road? Like, I don't know. But then now you're going to pay attention to it, and you're going to start
probably see 3 of them. Yeah.
So it's, I think because the whole manifestation things, with being a Christian, and there's a bit of it. It's kind of dark. I guess it can be taken as that, but also taken away from, that it's, God has a plan for you.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of it where you're kind of maybe trying to take control.
I think that's the issue I have with it. And it's because I do believe in a positive mindset, and you can, like, this is what I want to do. Yeah. And I'm going to keep a positive mindset, work hard. And, I've heard, people say, like, and, I watch UFC and all that, and like these fighters, some of them are like, I manifested this happening. And I'm always like, did you?
Yeah.
Or did you have some help along the way? Mm-hmm. Right? Like you put in the work for it, and you wanted this, but at the end of the day, if you are saying, I did this, and I used to have that mindset a long time ago. Mm-hmm. Everything, all the work that I put into, becoming a Navy SEAL and going through all that, the training and, getting beat down and whatever, like putting yourself through that gauntlet to get to where I'm at, where I was, I would say those things to my wife. Like, mm-hmm. No, I did that. I earned where I'm at. I, blah, 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 blah. When in reality, it's like, no, yes, you're the vessel that completed those tasks, but God was there. This is part of your journey, mm-hmm. and he allowed it to happen, right? Yeah, he gave you the air in your lungs, the determination, the whatever you needed to get through that. God provided that for you to start you on your journey, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's like if you're sitting there being like, I did all these things myself, I don't think that's the right mindset, and I think that will lead to in the future, like if you keep that mindset, like I did all these things, you're gonna have a hard road at eventually, because life throws things at you where it's like, well, now what are you gonna do? Because you literally can't do this on your own, right?
So I've had experiences through life where, where you keep kind of repeating the same thing, expecting different outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I've had a friend, business coach, mentor, a guy named Bob Conrad, and it's one of the things he said is like, you got to obey, but also too is, you have the free will, you have the will to where you can go and live this way, but you can also kind of live in, if you go and do acts of crime or things that are obviously not good for the soul, then, those are choices that you led into, but you can also live in a way that is where it's serving God.
That's why God gave us free will.
Mm-hmm. And then, then blessings in life, and it's also the belief and faith that knowing like whatever's happening and how it goes, like God's got your back.
Yep. Mm-hmm. For sure. And that's once you realize that God has your back no matter what, that is how, at least for me, that's how I keep a positive mindset, mm-hmm. right? Because no matter what is thrown at us or my family, it's like, well, I know we're going to get through this because God loves us, and He will get us through this, no matter how bad the struggle is. And that's how you keep a positive mindset and not a victim mentality, mm-hmm. which I think is the victim mindset and the victim mentality has been rampant, and it's been spread throughout our society. It's almost to now where who can be the biggest victim mm-hmm. gets the most spoils, and I see it seeping into our kids, right? Just the mindsets that they have, because I've now raised 3. I got 1 in high school. The other 2 are pretty much out of the house.
Yeah.
But I've seen that where it's like this, well, this happened to me, and this, they come up with these excuses and stories to make themselves the victim, to where it's like they don't take accountability for anything that they mm-hmm. did. And I think that's what society wants, is, well, not society, but certain parts of society want that, like, oh, no, you're not accountable for anything that you do. Like, it's not your fault. Like, let us take care of you, right? That's pretty much what the government wants.
Yeah.
And we can go on I don't want to go down
Yeah.
go on a rabbit hole on that, but I think that, that needs to be fought against. And I'm glad that there's individuals like you out there, in this area that are spreading that message. And I have plenty of other friends who are also spreading that message where it's like, no, dude, you're not the victim. You should never be the victim. You should always be pushing forward. There are circumstances where, yes, you are the victim, like if it's of a crime or something like that. Yes, you were a victim of a crime, but that does not mean that you should have a victim mentality. Like, you need to learn how to get over that. And once you do get over that and push forward, then you can use that to help others who are victims of that same crime or whatever. I'm just using those as examples. But no, it's awesome. I mean, and I saw recently. Not recently. When I saw you in 30A, was it the magazine?
Oh, the Emerald Coast magazine.
Yes.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
That was exactly a year ago.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, like when we're talking about how, like, if you leave like a situation or you make a change in your life that is like in alignment for who you are or the path that's meant for you, and how things will just all of a sudden come together and happen. And at that time frame, right before all that, I'd left a relationship, and I'm not going to go too much into that, but basically it was a very, very hard decision to make. And the decision I made, I knew it was for my own alignment and my own truth. And I was like, this is hard, but ultimately I know it's the right thing. And it was like right after that, it's like they're like, oh, by the way, you're going to be on the magazine cover. And then there was all these invitations and things. And it was almost just kind of like, hey, letting you know, don't be so down, don't be bummed, because you're back on the path. You're back on track, and it's kind of letting you know.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah, you're okay, and we're letting you know it's okay.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, when I saw you, I saw that cover. I think I forget where I was or maybe it was at home. Like, my wife gets it.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, dude, that's awesome that you're on there. I mean,
I was thrilled, man. It's there's some of the experiences I've had, man. I'm just like, I mean, I'll tear up and get emotional about it just because it's just I don't expect any of it. I'm just painting, and the biggest reward of anything is just that it makes people happy, and it's that kind of gift thing where I create something that's kind of someone else's life, experiences that's sentimental to them, and so to be a part of that whole transaction of life, as you'd say, experience, and to be able to capture something that's that creates that whole energy of just happiness and family, community, and just all the different elements of it that I experience, man. It's just, like, oh my gosh, man, this is cool.
You're blessed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't worry about, I've gone from where I was comfortable making money to not having any money, and then just knowing like, oh, it's all gonna be all right, and it is, and because it's just, it's like I'm doing this and aware and knowing that I've been, I guess, however things happen, it wasn't a mistake at all, and however creating and painting, it has its own little ripple effect or whatever, and I love every second of it, dude.
Heck yeah. Well, it shows, man. I mean, I've seen your paintings and stuff around town as well, and then also on your Instagram page, and which we'll put the link to that with the podcast so people can check out your work. But your work is like extraordinary. It's awesome.
Thanks,
it's beautiful. Like I said, the first time I saw you do it when we came back with that marlin, and just watch you go to work, like right there on the dock, and it's cool. Like everybody gathers around, they know who you are. I think, you've got a blessed life, man, it seems like. And you can tell just by being around you, like just the positive mindset that you have. And I ran into you a couple of times, especially at
Del Sol,
Burrito Del Sol,
Beauchamp's.
best burritos in Destin, dude.
Yeah.
I love that place, man. But yeah,
I've known those guys from high school, so they surf Brooks and Evans, and so we all surf. So they're great dudes, and that's kind of one of the cool things about the community is that they're, like with your kids growing up here, and how a lot of them don't want to leave. And it just kind of is a sign of like the community's how it is now is going to continue to stay how it is.
Yeah.
Because early on, they're already valuing their connections and friendships and where they live, and which is good to know because it's like, all right, well, eventually when I have a kid,
yeah,
or even just staying and living here, and you can kind of see where, this place has always just been like that. So
since you know the owners, tell them to build a Burrito Del Sol down this way. I think I talked to them one day when I was in there. I was like, dude, you guys need to open one up down by Santa Rosa Beach, man, because I'd make the drive. Those burritos, I mean, coming from California, where we lived for like 16 years in San Diego, it's hard to top.
Yeah,
breakfast burritos out there, and
oh.
Burrito Del Sol is the closest I found to it here, man. And I'll drive the 35 minutes out of the way to go down there and grab one. But I'm like, hey guys, let's try and open up in Santa Rosa. So I'm gonna make this trip. But they were like, I don't know, but we'll see.
That's awesome.
Put in a good word.
But hey, man, we got requests out east.
Yeah. Well, awesome, brother. Dude, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely, Eddie.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. And hopefully, we'll have you back on later on in the future, dude.
Man, that'd be awesome. And honored to be your guest. And, man, just thank you.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
Out.